a new generation of hungry, budding sellers that just wants to grow and are so passionate about the sales career.
Yeah.
And in my generation too, a lot of them, a lot of so take, for example, I graduated with a 4.0 in college,
Sure.
and one of my professors told me that I should go to operations or to finance. And I told him, well, I want to go in sales. And he was like, wait, you want to go in sales? Like you mean like insurance sales?
Probably made that face too.
Yeah, and I was like just so taken aback. I was like, I want to be in sales because of reasons that you would never understand. But I
Yeah.
think there's just like there's some people think that, sales is like a last resort and not like a first option. And so if they hear about people maybe academically achieving, they say, oh, you should go, it should be like in operations or in finance. And like, no, I want
Yes, you
sales.
save sales for the dumb people, right?
Exactly. But I think they're the most intelligent people in the world. So
Hey,
anyway.
there you go. There you go. Hey, you know what? That should actually be where we start.
Okay.
But no, hey, good stuff. And I'm ready when you are.
Ready.
Sheena, great to spend some time with you. Great to see you again. I really happy that you and I connected. I know obviously we work for the same organization, but some people may find it hard to believe that when there's 200,000 people in an organization, you don't necessarily meet everyone. So really glad our paths cross. We have a lot of similar ways of looking at things, but I'm really fascinated by your journey. I know that you kind of had an intentionality to wanting to get into sales. So I'm curious about, why you got into sales and what are you passionate about when it comes to selling?
Oh, I love that question. Carson, first of all, I feel like you meet everyone in the organization. I feel like there's not a person you haven't met yet. But to answer your question, I have a deeply rooted passion for sales ever since I was a young girl. Living in the Philippines, my earliest memory takes me back to kindergarten days where my family didn't have a house. So my dad, my mom, my brother, and I lived at my grandma's house in this tiny bedroom. And I vividly recall rats running across the room. We didn't have a bed. We had this thin sleeping bag and basically slept on the floor. So at a young age, I knew what poverty looks, smells, feels like, and it's such a powerful memory. But although we didn't have much, both of my parents were dreamers and they've always wanted more in life. And my dad used to say to me in our dialect, when if your dreams don't scare you, they're probably not big enough. So one day, my mom's best friend invited her to a multi-level type of business, so kind of like Amway and Avon, if you're familiar with that. So it was basically a sales career, sales opportunity. And after my parents signed up, the rest was history. And since then, sales has radically transformed our lives. My parents were able to raise capital from that sales venture and built their own businesses. My dad built a global business. My mom dabbled into real estate to franchising. And because we were such a tight knit family, we all had to pitch in. And my brother, I became a receptionist at a spa and I learned English through that. And because of sales, my parents were able to give us the opportunity to broaden our choices. Like I was able to come to the US and go to a business school. And I honestly consider my parents to be the best salespeople I've ever had the privilege of knowing. And that's, I think, where my passion for sales lies. It originally sprung out of that survival. It may have been a gift passed on by my parents, but truly, sales defined who I am today. Someone who knows how to listen, someone who's not intimidated or scared of rejection, and someone who can communicate clearly and build rapport, someone who's not afraid to go after what they want. Because I was a salesperson at 8 years old or even younger, I developed that mental toughness and truly gratitude and a big appreciation for hard work, discipline, tenacity, and most importantly, the value of mentorship. And I think it's so satisfying to be a vessel into solving other people's problems and challenges, through our products and services. But to sum it all up, I think a career in sales is humbling, it's rewarding, it's fulfilling, and it has honestly played a big part into the person who I've become today.
That's utterly incredible. And there's so much to touch on there, but I think at the heart of it is that you wound up in sales serendipitously, right? And I love how you make so many parallels between what sales is and can be into life. Life teaches you a lot of lessons, no matter
Yes.
what, we pay our dues. We all have our motivating factors and forces, and they change over time. I think that's the most amazing thing about it. I remember getting into sales very much by accident. I had a good upbringing. I knew my parents loved me. They were not in sales.
Yeah.
And I always felt, because I was an only child, like I wasn't doing enough for them to be proud of me. I had a chip on my shoulder. I did well in school, but it was like a sleepwalk. It wasn't something of interest. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I knew I had to move away from home, and I knew I had to get a job, and kind of turn into one of those scenarios. But with all of it comes, paying dues. There's a lot of challenges that young people face early on. So there's a lot of dues paying, and understanding what you can and cannot do, understanding how to play the game, because you can't
Yes.
just go out and voice your opinion every time you have one. So it took me a long time to learn discipline, but I'm curious, from your vantage point, Sheena,
Yeah.
what have you found have been some of the challenges that you faced starting out in sales and developing a career in sales? And how have you approached and overcome those challenges?
I think, well, I am a fairly, I wouldn't say new seller, but I'm the younger generation of the sellers. And I think the biggest challenge that I do face, or young people like me face in the sales career, would be the experience asymmetry. Meaning young salespeople like me, just starting out in their careers, trying to sell and pitch solutions to older decision makers who are established in the industry and have 10 to 50 years of sales experience, or not, or IT or whatever
Sure.
experience it is in their belt. And early on in my career, especially as a cloud seller, I struggled dealing with senior IT directors and managers who I know have, maybe archaic infrastructure, but not but they don't necessarily see the value of change. And so when I communicate that value to them with the full-on conviction, they're very hesitant. And then they sometimes resort to saying, well, young lady, I've been around more than you, or you don't know what you're talking about. And at first, I became very, very defensive. I felt like an imposter. I asked myself, what am I doing here? But I learned, as like you said, we change all the time and we constantly learn. And I learned that the easiest way to overcome that objection would be honesty and empathy. I think it's important to take a step back and truly understand where the client is coming from. So instead of just selling the solution, pitching your credibility and all that, I try and build rapport first and find common ground, because at the end of the day, my first order of business is I want them to like and trust me enough to have an open and honest communication. So I think I learned this, that it's important to have conviction, but it's equally, if not more important, to listen, build empathy, and ask the right questions, have a solid understanding of their goals and pain points. And because of this approach, my clients now don't see me as like a threat, but now they see me as someone who genuinely cares for their business and just wants to have a conversation and wants to see them grow and succeed.
I think that's phenomenal. I can tell you that, yeah, I mean, one of the primary differences, I love that you talk about this hungry new generation of sellers, and I want to talk about that a little bit more. Because what's funny, obviously I look back and I realize, I was once that a long time ago. And it's funny because I think one of the biggest differences, early on in career to later in career is I've just been told no probably thousands more times than you have, right?
Yes.
But ideally, we've learned from that, right? I mean, we can react and respond however we wish. So I love that you really sat in that rejection. You went through all the normal human feelings of being like, hey, like, is this the right arena for me?
Exactly.
And I've had multiple of those kind of reckonings in my career. I've had situations even mid-career where I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right role for me? Like even just some of the feedback or the experiences that I was having was kind of telling me maybe this wasn't, the fit or whatever it was. But I always chose to dig in harder, understand more, meet people where they are, understand truly what was, making the customers tick and what would help deliver a win for them. I had to realize and take a counterintuitive approach, like take some of the objections that I'm getting or the rejection that I'm, hearing through their tone or, the words that they're using and, funnel that into my approach. Like I completely understand that this is how you feel. It industry articles dictate, or, when I talk to your colleagues in the business, these are the types of things that I'm hearing. I know you're grappling with this. Like, how are you hitting that head on? And just to be able to have an actual real conversation with these folks, regardless of their experience, regardless of a lot of the other factors that are out there. But I want to hear more about the hungry young seller and how do we help them over the long haul? Like, what advice would you give to some of the other folks that are coming out and entering into sales today?
Well, I think my biggest advice for them would be just seek mentorship. I think, and this is very debatable, this is just my opinion, I think mentorship is as important as breathing. I think if you want to grow, you truly need to find a mentor. And throughout my life and career, I've climbed the ladder because of two things. One, I proved excellence in my current role, and two, I had a mentor. So mentorship can come in different forms, and there's different types of mentors. In my life, I have 4 different types of mentors. So I've got like a peer mentor who is a coworker or a buddy that's so good in what I currently do, and they excel in what they do, and it's more so kind of coaching, and I ask for their advice. I have aspirational mentors like you, Carson, who are people that are further on in their career, who have demonstrated leadership and they are successful, and I look up to them and I say, I want to be like them, 10, 20, 30 years from now. And then I have my counsel mentors, people that I may have connected with in a deeper level, and our conversation transcends just career, and they help me with my personal development as well. And then finally, I have sponsors or sponsor mentors who I may have connected with maybe 2 or 3 times. We don't talk that often, but they know me, they know my story, and they are in a position where if I'm ready to take the next big step, they can introduce me to their network and help me out. So I think mentorship is super important, and I am very I have so much conviction when it comes to mentorship. And when I reach out to mentors, I make sure, one, I am intentional, I'm very passionate, and it does shine through. When I talk to someone, they know that I'm very passionate about mentorship. Two, I'm also persistent. Like, I when someone says no, to me, it's a not yet, or maybe a year from now, I'll reach back out to them. And then 3 is my communication approach as well. And it's important to, when you're trying to find a mentor, it's important to, I say, over communicate, because they would want to know what your story is. They would want to know why you're reaching out to them. And finally, you would want to build rapport by reaching out to them. So for example, in your case, Carson, you have been someone that I just absolutely wanted to talk to for months on end because of how you position yourself on LinkedIn and being, the #1 social seller. And so I knew I had to differentiate myself. So I bought your book, first of all, because I wanted to let you know that, hey, I'm very serious. I want, a seat at your table. I want to talk to you. I am hungry. I'm driven. please mentor me. So sorry, I'm going on and on, but I think mentorship.
That's okay. I don't mind. This is so good. This is so good, Sheena. First off, aim higher than me. But there's so many quotables in this, like about mentorship being as important as breathing. I get asked a lot of times, what would you tell your younger self? And I always think about, I had a mentor a couple of years ago that told me this line that your network is your net worth. And it's so true, because I look back in my career and I will tell you, like early on, I had no idea what I was doing. Relatively early on in career for several years, like for me, it was always about what's the next role, develop command and mastery of the role and then move on, move up, right? And that was all it was for me. I didn't seek out mentors. And so I love the fact that you understand the value and importance of it, because I think there's so much that folks, even like me, can continue to learn about the value and importance of a mentor and how you articulated the different types, because there absolutely are. There's those people that you work alongside that you kind of push each other. Like I may not be feeling it today, but the guy sitting next to me is feeling it. Or, I've got a friend of mine who can call me and she knows exactly what to say to like get me fired up. And like, we can just feed off of each other. Then you've got, okay, I see these folks, and you and I were having an earlier conversation about like, people that I looked at as aspirational mentors years ago, like to the point where I'm like, I could never hold a candle to these folks. Like now I go out and have meals with them. Wow. And so it amazes me to the point that like, what I love about what you said is that, you talk about getting a response from folks, getting a response from strangers, getting them into your camp. I did a post earlier in the week about how we need to be intentional about building out like a personal advisory board. And that board can be all of those different types of mentors that you highlight. All of those different types of people are important. And every meaningful role that I've ever been pulled into in my career, because hindsight's 2020, has been because of a relationship, except one. Wow. Whether I was promoted or whether I made a move to another organization, it was all because of relationships. And so that's the most important thing. Like that is it. And that's why I couldn't agree more that it's more important than breathing, or as important. Gotta breathe.
It's as important as breathing. You basically die in your career if you don't have a mentor.
That's good. See, this is like meme worthy. We could be creating memes left and right based on this conversation. I think this is super powerful. Like what I loved too, you told me a story, and share as much of this as you feel that you want to, but I think there was almost like surprise and awe when you like made the declaration that you wanted to go into sales. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think, going back to my parents' story, I know that I saw sales transform their life financially, and I want that. And, I'm hungry, and I came to the US, and Americans are amazing salespeople. You sell the American dream, basically. I'm like, I want to go to the US. I want to, get rich and be wealthy. And honestly, you were saying our motivation factors constantly change. And honestly, that was my motivating factor. I truly wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to get out of, I was already kind of out of the rat race, but I wanted to build generational wealth for myself and my kids. Yeah. And I understood that I'm not chasing wealth, directly. I'm chasing freedom. And I know that the only way to get time freedom is through having enough money or passive income, having enough income in the bank so you don't even have to work anymore. And so I knew that with sales, there's just unlimited potential and income, and you can make as much as you want to through your grit. But I think that was why I declared, I think me saying I want to be in a sales career is me saying I want to put in so much work early on in my life so that I can retire young and live life to the fullest without thinking about, anything else.
Yeah, I love that. What I think is amazing is that, now there are full college curriculums built around selling, and there's a lot of very intentional focus on sales as a career, and I think that's great. I know how rewarding it's been for me, but it definitely has not been all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, there's a lot of challenges that come out throughout career, and I'd love for you to talk about like what are just some of the setbacks that maybe you've had in a sales career. How have you tackled them, And what would you tell other sellers about maybe the mindset required to be successful in sales?
Yeah, so Carson, that's such a good question. I think my biggest setback when I was younger, or even today, was, rejection.
Yep.
But because I've been a salesperson at a very young age, it's like I eat rejection like I eat rice. Like it's normal. Like it's a given. If you're in sales, it's given that you are going to face rejection. And I think you should, you know, realize coming into it, if you shouldn't ask the question, am I going to be rejected? You are going to be rejected
Yeah.
because that's just sales. Sometimes it's a numbers game. And so you just need to develop a mindset of, one, an understanding of the game. As you always mention, you have to understand it's a game. And then second, you have to have a mindset of, okay, I just need to be consistent. I just need to establish discipline, because a lot of people, they'll go full on their first year, and then then they burn out and they're not consistent. And that's why you keep your process simple and you keep it straightforward. Is your process something that could be built into your routine, like you were just saying earlier about, that's why you're very consistent with your podcasts, because it's not rocket science for you. It only takes you 5 minutes to set it up. And that's how I think we should approach sales. We should be very people focused first and create processes around our routine that does not take a lot of energy.
Yes, couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, it's got to be very people centric. People are at the heart of all of it. And
Yes.
if you take yourself out of the equation, like, it isn't about you. It's about how can you said it earlier, Sheena. I loved it. You called yourself a vessel to creating better outcomes for your customers. And I think that's the key element, is if you genuinely show up and you are, transparent about what's behind the curtain. You let customers know, hey, these are the resources that I have. These are the points of view that we are qualified to speak about. These are ways that we've helped others like you. And maybe I can't help you today. If I can't,
Yes.
fair enough. But let me know if I can at some point. Because if you plant those seeds, you were talking about the numbers game element of it. Keep your process simple, but execute it consistently over time. That's what leads to success. And the thing of sales, I love that you also called out, like, I've seen so many sellers that were phenomenal after 3-6 months. They were crushing it. Oh, I'm ready to be promoted, right?
Right.
And then they don't get promoted. Month 9, 12, they're burnout, and then they never are able to kind of recapture the old glory for a variety of reasons. I think the key to a successful sales career is making sure that you're really focused on people, both internal, colleagues, mentors, and also focused on your customer outcomes, but also process, understanding that process. I do a lot of talking about being a student of the game, understanding the parameters you're playing with, the value that you bring, but also that adaptability over time. The success today isn't the same as it was 20 years ago. My role that I have today doesn't look anything like the job that I did when I started out in sales, but yet you take little things and pieces along the way, a lot of learning from rejection, and hopefully you can turn it into a masterpiece.
Well, hopefully, yes. Hopefully I can be a sales director one day, 30 years from now.
I believe that. I believe you can go higher than that. So
Oh my gosh. Thanks, Carson.
I get jealous when I get to meet with people in your position, because you've got all the time in the world. And but in all seriousness, like, I've been so grateful for everything that sales has afforded me, mostly because of relationships. And if anything, like, what I've been able to achieve has unlocked doors, so that, to your earlier point, I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of amazing people. And I have to pinch myself, because I'm just a small town kid from the Midwest US. And
Yeah, and it's crazy
here
because
we
now
are.
you've established such a good brand for yourself on LinkedIn, because you were consistent and you put people first. And instead of you chasing people, now people are attracted to you because you have built such this genuine um just this brand about being, one, you are a sales leader, and also two, you're all about people. So I hopefully one day wish to have that for myself as well, where I'm not chasing people anymore. I'm attracting my tribe and I'm attracting my crowd.
I love it. I absolutely love that. And if anything, I hope that I can show that anybody can do it. Because if I can, anybody can. And I firmly believe that in 20 years, you'll maybe go back and watch this interview if you even
Oh my
remember
God.
it. And you'll have taken over the world, Sheena.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Thanks, Carson.
Absolutely. Thank you. This was great. And let's do this again sometime.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so, so much.